Hello and welcome back to Together We F.E.E.L panel conversation here on the Embracing Layers Network. This is our first live panel in 2026, so Happy New Year. I meant to get on here last week. I got back from the holidays and I had no voice. So we took another week off. So now we're here and we are going to talk about today feeling financially empowered. And this is going to come across in a multitude of ways. I've got 4 fabulous women here who work in this industry, that can help you in this industry, but can also talk to you about the fact that you can work in this industry too. I think sometimes we have over time seen a lot of men in the industry, haven't really maybe thought of ourselves, and it doesn't matter what season of life you're in. You may not be in college right now. Maybe you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s. You're thinking about a shift or a change. That's possible too. We have women here that have done that. But I wanted to, I've done other panels and podcast conversations where we've talked to you about the fact that it's important and you're completely capable of owning and knowing your finances, because many times, especially generationally, that hasn't been the case. But I also want you to know that you can be a powerhouse in this industry. This can be an avenue for you to work in. And I wanted these ladies to get a chance to meet each other too, because I think it's so great to have other women that you are connected to in the industry. So I'm very lucky today to have with me Amanda J. Scott. She's coming to us from Australia, folks. It is Tuesday morning down under. So she has already survived Monday. So that's the good news. Tomorrow's coming. We know that. She has solidified that with us. We have Angela Yacobelis, Maria Mai, and Tina Mystery. Angela and Maria come to us from Southern California. Tina's here in Fresno, California with me. I've met these women through all different ways. I've met them through my connections at Podmatch. I've met them through conferences that I've spoken at where we came together. I've met them through local organizations that I'm a part of. So that's also such a great and powerful way. And what I love to do is like, wait a minute, these guys might be able to support and help each other too, and support the listeners out there. So this was a multi-pronged approach for me today. So welcoming all of you. I'm going to start with Amanda. Talk to me about why you chose the route you chose, and what is it that made you decide it's what you wanted to do?
Lovely. Well, what I do is I am an author, and I help people who have experienced or are experiencing financial or emotional abuse. To gently heal what's been broken and make positive choices in their life. Now, I know about this through my own life experience, and that's why it's an important area for me, because everybody deserves the opportunity to heal and move on from an abusive situation.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that. I think it's really important that we point out for a minute that financial abuse is a part of the abuse menu. So many times we talk about it in terms of physical and sexual. We're starting to talk about it more as mental and emotional, but the financial piece is very real and can be very costly in so many layers and ways. So I'm so glad. And that's why it's so important, I think, to have you part of this conversation. And we're going to let you talk more about that. But I want to have the other women have a chance, and I'm going to circle back around and give you a chance to each talk more. But we're going to put a pin in that, because I think that's an important part of the conversation. And in feeling empowered after you've been through that financial abuse, getting your legs, building that trust with other people, building that trust within yourself. So more on that to come. Angela Yacobelis, talk to me about yours, because yours is multi-pronged as well in terms of you started out in research and then you moved into real estate, but then talk about why you chose the path you're on now, and when you chose it and why you chose it.
Okay. So again, my name is Angela and I'm in life insurance and retirement. planning. And as you mentioned, my first career in life was in biotech, and I've kind of morphed throughout the years through raising my daughter, staying home, becoming a business owner. And I was in real estate, and for years I loved it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working with new buyers and, people selling their home in all stages of life. And then about 12 years ago, when my father passed away, we went, and it was very unexpected. He was in his early 60s, and we saw the financial burden that put on my mom because he didn't have the right planning in place. And so that kind of sparked that little spark in me going, this happens to more and more women, because as women, we tend to look at the husbands and they get to do all the planning, and we take a back seat to that. And you don't realize mostly women outlive men. And, and we're the ones left going, now what? And I saw what that did to my mom. And like I said, that kind of sparked it in me that I wanted to do something about that. And it took till about 4 or 5 years ago when I really, she was moving into our house, and, we were really seeing the financial repercussions. And that's what got me to make a move and reach out to my local agent, actually. And she had wanted me to do this 15 years ago. She saw it in me that I would be good at this. And I said, no, I'm not ready. And, and really, I wish I would have done it sooner, but here I am, and I really enjoy it because I love, not just helping women, helping everybody, but I love helping women feel that empowerment and be able to take control of their situation and know that they'll be set, that they'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. All right. Maria, how about you? Talk to people about what you do and why you decided to do that.
Yeah. And for me, it was because I never knew what to do with my finances since I started working. And you would think that they teach us in school, or at least in the business school. I graduated from the business school, and they didn't teach us anything. So I taught myself. I started with investments. That's my passion and my favorite thing to talk about. And one of my best friends told me, hey, you're like the only female I know that talks about money at all. And I was like, oh, that's a problem. So I decided to not only teach myself. I was working at corporate and I wasn't really feeling fulfilled, and I wanted to do something different. And so I decided to switch to be a financial advisor, because I was already doing that on the side for my friends, my parents, my sister. And then that's how I got on this. And as a financial advisor, investments, yes, that is important, but I also do the protection piece too, insurances as well. I also work with a lot of business owners. Their planning is crazy, helping them not only implement retirement accounts for themselves, but also their employees. And then group insurances, there's a lot. So I work in that space as well.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you. And Tina, my friend, how about you?
So my name is Tina Mistry. I'm the owner and senior financial advisor at Portfolio Advisors. We're a local independent financial planning and investment advisory firm. The firm's been around for about 35 years. I'm just reaching my 20th year here, and I took over from the previous owners in the last few years, and that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But I'll say that I got into this totally by accident. I was a broke college student, trying to figure out pursuing a finance degree and trying to pursue, a career. And I knew I didn't want to go into investment banking or, just kind of the typical career paths that were offered. And I had a friend who was moving away, getting married, and she basically said, hey, I work for this firm, Portfolio Advisors, and I need somebody to replace my client services associate job. And I said, well, it sounds like it's in finance, so sign me up. And here 20 years later, I own the company. So totally by accident, but I fell in love with it along the way. And we primarily work with folks who are just a few years away from retiring. We typically like to work with folks a lot earlier in life, but it just kind of fits into our wheelhouse. And when people really kind of start taking these things seriously is a few years away from when they're actually kind of cutting ties with their job or career. So that's typically who we work with. And I've just sort of fallen in love with working with that clientele, helping them solve problems, helping them sort of navigate the complexity. But I think most of all, avoiding a lot of potholes. About a little bit of ways through my career, I personally, through my family, went through a pretty significant financial struggle. And if I didn't have the knowledge that I had at that particular point in time, I think things would have looked a lot worse for myself and my family. So I think through some life lessons is probably what has sort of made me stick around and want to continue along this career path. So
yeah. All right. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to go back to Amanda. Talk to me. What was the driver behind you deciding, hey, I'm going to be a resource to women, but talk to me about what financial abuse might look like, because I think I don't think we talk about this enough. And so give some examples of what that might look like.
Well, financial abuse, it didn't start with money. It started emotionally for me. So the emotional abuse enabled the financial abuse because I was too scared to question my husband's decision. Why? Because all I wanted was peace and for the constant tension in the house to be relieved. So I did as I was told. So I was conditioned to doubt myself, my instincts, and my right to question things. And once your self-trust is eroded emotionally, financial control becomes very easy. So, I was trained to believe that my role was to trust and not to challenge. So I stopped asking questions, not because I didn't care. It was because I didn't trust myself enough to think my question was valid. So when you're made to feel difficult or ungrateful for wanting clarity, you learn to stay quiet. And this silence creates a perfect environment for financial control to grow. So that's when I talk about financial empowerment, I always come back to self-trust, because without it, money becomes another place where power is taken away.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. How do you think, when you realized this for yourself, and you're I know from our conversations, you're in a different space now. What were your first steps that you took to trusting yourself? Because it's one thing to say, I need to trust myself. I need to trust my instincts. I need to trust my intelligence. What are the kind of steps that you had to take, and now you help others to take to get there?
Well, absolutely, because that is rebuilding trust, and it's rebuilding self-trust.
Yeah.
And it was about learning to listen to myself again, to believe that my instincts matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once you do that, and then money stops becoming, you stop becoming intimidated about money.
Yeah.
You start to empower, because today it means that I don't hand over authority to anyone else, and I don't silence myself to keep comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I think so many times in these conversations, because in relationships, finances can be a sticky business, and Tina has an approach that I'll talk about in a minute when we get to, that I really like about when she approaches, she's working with a couple. But it's part of that is allowing yourself to feel confident in it, so you can ask the questions, have the open conversations,
Absolutely.
not feel like someone knows more than you. So and that you can learn too. I mean, there's so much in a piece and part of that, of getting your power back, but also being able to have really healthy conversations amongst yourselves and each other, and be able to spot, wait a minute, this is a problem. I'm being taken advantage of here. I'm not, I have a choice in that.
And I'll just add one thing. It's about realizing that I trust myself enough to ask, to know, and to choose.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Angela, you decided, like, oh, this thing that I have went through with my mom, there's something I can do about this here. Talk about a little bit more about what that might look like for people. So if you can, like, I don't want you to share your mom's financial history, but give some like overriding examples of what that might look like, so people have an idea of what to kind of look out for.
Right. Okay. So, through life circumstances, my dad made some decisions and things like that towards the end of his life, job changes, different things, various reasons. And so their financial outlook wasn't the way they thought it was going to be, but he thought he had time. And that's the one thing none of us are guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
We don't know when our time is up, really. Yeah. And he thought he had more time. And what happened was, he didn't. And he had life insurance, he had some retirement planning, but it wasn't enough. When you look at your circumstances, you think, okay, that should be okay. But he did that planning probably 20 years prior.
Sure.
Thinking that the house would be paid off, or that the 401k would be there the way, he thought it was going to be, but it wasn't. And then, and here was my mom going, what do you mean I don't get 2 Social Securities?
Yeah, that's such a big thing. People don't know that.
Not everybody realizes that if somebody passes away, you're a married couple, you get the larger of the 2, not both.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a misnomer that a lot of people suffer from. That we as financial professionals, I think, need to do a better job of educating and getting that word out there so that people understand it. But that was a big deal that that was a big part of her retirement that was no longer there. Because they both worked.
Yeah.
So she thought they would have each would have a good Social Security. So that's something that I definitely try and instill in my clients, is that you don't have that guarantee. There are no guarantees. You have to look at the full picture and plan for the what ifs, because it's those kinks. Any financial planner would even say, something comes in and messes up our plan. We have to plan for that something could come in there and change it. So we have to have those insurances. We have to have plan B, plan C in place to cover that. And that's what I work with my clients on, and, have had to work with my mom on.
Yeah.
Because a lot, then it becomes the kids are plan B, plan C.
Yes. Yes. And I will tell you, I cannot tell you how many times that Brady has said to me, we gotta, and we're on Tina's list, and we need to get with her because she's going to be our person. And I've been saying this for almost a year now. And she really is. And I've got an idea for that afterwards, because my husband's job is wildly busy and crazy. But it's that, we don't want to be a burden to our kids. Well, we have to plan for that to not be a burden to our kids. Right. It can't just declaring it.
Well, and then what I've noticed too is that, we're in that sandwich generation, and a lot of us are hitting that my daughter is going to college and she wants to go to USC. Well, USC tuition is not $10,000 a year. It's a lot more than that. Yeah. And then, both my husband and I, our parents are getting in that older They're
Yeah.
requiring more care, more, and it's not just the financial burden, it's the time burden.
Yeah.
Because now who's taking them to the doctor's appointments? Who's, that tends to fall on the wives a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're not working as much. So it all comes into play. And so I think, that we're, as women especially, and we're in a unique position to have experienced it or have friends who are experiencing it so that we can help our clients, really.
Yeah, it's so multi-layered. Thank you for bringing up
Yeah.
that sandwich generation piece. That is a huge part of it. Huge part of it. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, Maria, you said something that I think is so key when your friend said to you, "You're the only one that talks about money," and I think that's such an interesting thing. So, what is it in you? Do you think that drove that conversation for you to be the woman that was like not only talking about it but comfortable in it?
Yeah. So something that I've learned is, I guess trauma is something, but there's money trauma. And when you have money trauma, you go in two separate directions. You either spend all of your money because you're used to not having it, or you save all your money because you're used to not having it. So, but it goes, you're either overspend or underspend. And because I grew up not having a lot of money, I also am in the sandwich generation, even though I don't have kids yet. So there's no sandwich yet, but I will have kids. So there will be a sandwich. But I've always known growing up that I would have to support my parents in some capacity because they didn't have a retirement plan. And they actually, well, they do, which is me. So because I am their retirement plan, and that is also very common in the Asian culture, I know that I need to make sure my finances are in order if I'm going to support other people besides myself, And so I think part of it is just having the trauma of not having a lot of money, and then also not having the knowledge of what to do with it. I had to figure it out myself. So 10 years ago, I taught myself how to invest and how to manage my money. Then I started doing it for my parents too. And very funny story. When I was first investing myself and I was like, hey, mom and dad, let me invest your money. I went to a Chase branch, right? I went to talk to some guy, right?
I'm finance bro.
Yeah, he was. He looked just like one. I feel like most people in our industry, they don't look like us in this panel, right? The majority of the industry is still very male dominated. But he was just like, yeah, like we'll put it in here. And I was like, sure. And so every day my parents called me every day for a year and they're like, it's going down. And I'm like, just wait a second. Because of course, in 1 year, your money's not going to grow. You have to let it sit for 5+ years, So after the second, third year, and so on, and now after 10 years, even if the market crashes, they are still up from where they were, And so now they're like, you can do whatever you want with our money. And so now they just give it to me, and then I am investing for them. So that's kind of why I am so passionate about it. And I guess the reason why, and being a female, not many people talk about it. I just noticed that everyone I was talking to was a male. And then my best friend was just a female. And then she, when she mentioned that to me and I reflected back on every single person I talked about money with, it was always a man. And that's fine. That's okay. But I think us all women being in the industry, it's just like, I would rather talk to a female. Men are fine, but I don't know if I want to listen to a man when it comes to my finances. And I think it's pretty, not all women, but I think a lot of women. And we also understand each other different, in a different way than like a man would.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's a really good point. And that really segues nicely into Tina does something really important when she talks to couples about their money. They both come in and she makes sure they both understand what's happening.
Yes.
And I think that has a lot to do with what Maria was saying. So talk to me about what you were very fortunate in that you were surrounded by mostly men that they always believed in you. And you were very fortunate to have that, which is, it's sad to say fortunate, but that's just kind of how it is. And so because of that, you were able to do what you're doing now and now own it. But what led that decision to be like, oh, this is very important that I'm not, when John calls me and John wants to make an appointment with me, that not just John comes, he brings Barbara too. And we're going to make sure that John and Barbara are both square here. Talk to me about that importance of that decision.
Yeah, there's I think from a standpoint of getting our clients buy-in into our process and what we do and how we do it, and having them feel and know that they're a part of, the entire process is really important. If they're more likely to implement the advice and follow through on things if they're both involved in the process, and again, know that they have that quote unquote investment into what we're doing. So there's that. I think, in a lot of circumstances, it's the husband that passes away first, and then the wife is the one who is left sort of to continue on and make sure her finances are taken care of and she's provided for and that sort of thing. And we've had a number of circumstances where, yeah, maybe it was a more male dominated situation and the wife kind of comes in after he's passed away. Maybe we haven't worked with them, together. And there's a huge learning curve, that huge education process that has to happen. And it's all very, very doable. I think the moment that I see those widows just sort of realize, hey, I can do this, or I understand this, or, they're playing back to me certain strategies we've talked about, several years down the road. I think that's just super rewarding in terms of part of what we do, because we lead with education. We want to educate our clients and make sure they understand what it is that we're doing, and they kind of learn things along the way. So yeah, it's absolutely crucial to the relationship. And I also think too, we typically work in teams with clients depending on the circumstances. And Melissa, you alluded to sort of my career path and working with, I worked with 4 other gentlemen that were advisors, and they always brought me into the fold, never really questioned the fact that I was a female, that I couldn't or couldn't do something. I was just very, very, very blessed. They just never told me no. I just kind of said, hey, what are you doing? Or, what's that? What are you kind of working on? So on and so forth. Hey, can I try that? Sure. Let me show you how this works. Or here, hey, go figure this piece out and come back to me with questions. It was very much a learning environment, and, observe and collaborate and those sorts of things. So I think one of the key pieces, that not only being a female, the only female advisor of the firm, but one of the key pieces of some of these relationships that we work with is, if I have a couple, male, female, and it's a male advisor, having another female in the room, so there's 2 females and 2 males in the room, I see the shoulders drop. I see the, I'm more comfortable in the room because there's another female in the room, and there's another female in the room, plus the male acknowledging, okay, said wife, how do you feel about this? Or, do you have any questions? Body language is everything, and, physically looking at them and pointing their direction and acknowledging their presence and then some. I think has been really, really huge. And then in a lot of circumstances, when their male counterparts have passed away, they want to continue to work with me or our team because they just feel that sense of connection. I think it's something crazy like 70% of widows end up leaving their financial advisor because they have no relationship with who is typically a male financial advisor. And I just don't think that's acceptable. I think we're in it for the long haul with our clients, regardless of who survives the other. And everyone's got an equal say in the room. So yeah, that's just part of our philosophy and how we operate.
Yeah, it goes back to what Maria was saying about women wanting to talk about women or feeling more comfortable with, more like they've got a chance to be heard, less threatened because of the stigmas and things that are out there within that. I mean, Maria is I'm going to shout out Maria here, and you're all rock stars, but Maria specifically like kicks butt. Like she is like regularly like the quarterly or monthly leader in her office. Like she's very driven. How much of that, I'm curious for you, is driven by the fact that, by God, I'm a woman in here and I'm going to show you what I can do? And how much does that play into that for you, Maria?
It doesn't. It doesn't. Okay. I think I just have I don't know if it's my ego. Like I like being the best, and also I'm not thinking of like, oh, I'm the best and I'm a woman, which is cool. But I think it's more like I just want to be the best, and also I am the top 2 in my region right now in my category. So it was official. They sent me an email about that. So I'll be, I mean, it's like a stage and I get to walk for 2 seconds and be happy. But it's so funny that like, I feel like I'm at a point now where recognition feels great. And Melissa, I think we talked about this too. I think you're a successful person. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but
Absolutely.
Okay, when I asked you, like, do you think you're successful? And you're like, no. And I was like, do other people think you're successful? And you're like, yeah. And then it's like, at what point do we feel like we're successful?
Yeah.
And we feel successful when we finally decide that we are, because we can have all these awards. We all have our own business, right? And that is great, like a very successful practice for us to be here and speak. But like, do we feel like we are? And so and then the awards, I have learned, and I knew this would happen, but it's great, but then it's fleeting, Yeah. And what is very rewarding is the clients that we serve and that we help, and that feels 10 times better than any award. So it sucks because I was thinking that if I won all these awards, I'll finally be happy for the rest of my life, and I know that that's not true, but I think I have to like experience it. So I think what helps too is that now that I really don't care about awards, it kind of ends up happening because my focus is my clients. And even though that has always been the case, you know what I mean? But you show up differently when you're just there for them versus any kind of like recognition that you can get. So it's just like constantly learning about life. And I think it's also just like learning about yourself and what fulfills you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. It was so funny when we were recording our podcast together, Maria turned the tables on me and I was like, oh, damn, I gotta answer that is such a good question. And I have to be honest because I asked my guests to be honest. So but I think that's such a good point and goes back to what you've all talked about in the relationships that you built. Angela and Tina and Amanda, you've all mentioned relationships. And I think that's something that women, I think, approach financial work a little differently than men than that. Would you say that's something you all have seen? Anybody can speak up on this.
Absolutely. I think, women just have a different approach, not better or worse, but it's just different. And remembering to look at the female, if you're talking to a husband and wife, a lot of times for some reason, I've been on that other end of it where the person is talking to my husband and not me. And I'm like, hello, he has no clue. He doesn't pay attention. I don't know why you're talking to him. It's me who's going to give you the yes or no.
That's such a good point because it's so funny. For Brady and I, he handles like the longer term stuff, the investments, and I handle the day-to-day, the monthly. If somebody asks him what, how much we paid, he's just like, I don't know. And if somebody asks about what we're invested in, I'm like, I have a rough idea. I know where to find stuff. I know who to call when I need to know. And he knows the same thing. I mean, we know where to find. We've cross-trained each other, but I think it's so interesting that assumption that is made in the looking at peace. I want you all, you've all had a chance to talk. I want you all, and we'll start with Amanda and go around the circle to have a chance to ask each other questions or make any statements off of things you've heard from each other. So we'll do that next. Amanda, do you have any questions for anybody or any statements or thoughts based on anything you've heard?
Well, I think, Tina, fantastic. You bring both of them in together. And I really think that is so important because often the woman is left at home and the man goes and he is control. Because some men like control.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe you don't have clients like that, but there's a lot of men that like control because money is linked to power and control and safety and fear and worth. But you see, for a long time, money carried a lot of shame for me because I made to feel bad around it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such a, I'm so, I get you, all the emotions that come with money and having confidence in it and trusting yourself in it, how that impacts those emotions.
Yeah. But you see, I was always left in a position where I had to ask for money. And, you know, the way it made me feel, I felt like a burden, like I was incapable, like I didn't deserve financial independence. So, you know, I had to, and then I felt, also felt scared, too scared to access money from the accounts and the credit card because of the repercussions, being yelled at. So, you know, I learned to avoid and I learned to make do. So I avoided money, and avoidance creates the overwhelm for me.
Yeah.
So looking back, you know, the real step for me was to admit it, you know, that this was not love, that this is not what I deserve, that nobody should have to ask and beg for money as though they, in a partnership, as though they're a child.
Yeah.
You see? So when you've got that happening, it's really not about it's about building that emotional safety within yourself. Yeah, it's about releasing the shame and reclaiming our sense of worth. So it's really stepping into that area, the emotional side, and fixing the emotional side first, because a man who doesn't want to have the woman controlling the finance because he loses, you know, he's insecure, will not have her in one of your meetings, Sina. You know, he won't be there.
Yeah.
So it's about really helping women. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing, saying, yes, I think it's right to bring them both in together so they both know what's happening. Because when they do pass away, often this happens that they're left with no money. They haven't got, because the will's made, and it takes a whole year to sort out the will and for probate to come in. So it takes a long time. And, you know, the woman is left with nothing and she can't get assistance. She just has to wait. So I think it's wonderful what you're doing anyway. And I think more of that needs to happen. I really do. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Amanda, because you've been on that end of it. And for those of us that are working with couples or helping people, what are some of the things, if we see a situation where we see that the wife or they're not really involved, they're being pushed out, what is maybe one or two things we could do as advisors to help pull that back in. I mean, we're not going to solve the relationship problem. I get that. That's a whole that might be a ask. But one or two things that we could maybe do to help give them some power back in that financial setting.
It's a hard one, because really it's only until the woman sort of admits it herself, because it's very hidden. It's a lot of it is about it's a hidden abuse, and people, a fear of judgment comes up, lack of resources. But I think it's really about talking about it, mentioning it, talking to your client if they don't want to bring in the wife, that this is an important area for her to know about. But really, it's about her becoming aware, because she can't speak up. That's a problem. She's lost her voice. She is in silence. She's fearful. She's in fear. So until she becomes emotionally stable, can she ever become financially stable? Really? So she needs to become trust. But I would make sure that this is a normal in your business, that the wife comes. Because there are, you might not realize, but there are consequences when something passes away or anything. Everything needs to be put in place. So the more you can help in that way, the better.
Thank you.
I think so. Yes.
I think that what happens if something happens to you? You become ill and you aren't conscious, or you pass away, or whatever it is. It's important for her to kind of use that as the caveat, so that you're not like stepping on toes, but maybe it opens a door or an avenue. That's tricky. Thank you so much for that. And it's like what Maria said earlier, it's that trauma. And the trauma drives you one of two ways. It drives you, in one of two directions, and that you see the very real impact. And that's why I talk about so much. I mean, I talk about on the podcast, and you guys have all heard this. I talk about mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health, financial health, sexual health. These health pieces are all part of our care and the impacts that they have on us in all these different areas and ways. And you're all showing up to help minimize that, is it hopefully like this. It doesn't have to have this. There doesn't have to be this fear. There doesn't have to be this scary thing. It doesn't have to be this unmentionable. I'm going to help you trust yourself. I'm going to help you trust, that you can learn and know what to do, and you can trust me, and I think there's so many layers and pieces. And I think that's where coming back to that relationship piece, where you're all in relationships. When you create relationships, that's where trust is built. And so, when it comes to the finances, and so part of that work being that this isn't just a transaction. I think sometimes for men in finance, it's very transactional. And that doesn't give you an opportunity to build that trust with someone who has trauma. Absolutely. Angela, any other questions for anybody else?
Not that I can think of off the top. I mean, I think we're all focusing on, not just, like you said, the transaction. It's having that relationship. And, given all the talk being on AI and how AI is going to play into all of our worlds, I still think a relationship is top priority. AI can help, but it really comes down to one-on-one, being able to talk with people. That is going to be important.
Such a good point. Thank you for that. All right. Maria, any questions for anyone?
No questions, but I wanted to share how I respond whenever I'm speaking to one spouse. I always like to get both spouses on, and the first question I ask is, do you make financial decisions together?
That's so good.
And they always say yes. And so then I say, no. And then I say, hey, then let's get all the decision makers together in one room. you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I say. And another thing too is, hey, if I'm talking to the husband, it's usually the husband. If something happens to you, right? Then I want to make sure your spouse, your wife, your husband, right? I want to make sure that your spouse is like feeling comfortable to talk to me, because then I
Yeah.
will have to talk to them, right? I don't want that to be the first conversation we have. Is if something bad happens to you, now they don't know what to do with their money. I want them to feel comfortable enough to reach out to me because they already know me. So I think it would be a good idea for all of us to be together. You know?
Lovely.
Yeah, so that's usually how I respond to whenever I'm only speaking to one. And sometimes they're still like, no, you know, and that it is what it is, but I always make sure I ask. And then something that I have learned too is like, even though this is a male dominated industry, I think two traits that women have that make us very effective and helpful for our clients is one, empathy, right? And two is listening. And the reason why I bring those 2 points up is because I was in a meeting with some of the top advisors, and like one of them, a man, was speaking, and then someone asked him like, hey, how did you really get to grow your practice? Like, what made you jump from here to here, right? And he was like, because I listened. And we know listening tends to be a female trait. Not saying that men don't, but you know. So it's very fascinating to hear that. And then the second time that happened, and again, a different male advisor, he was he just like jumped in production. Like he just got really good. And we're like, how did you attain like significantly more clients this year? And he was like, I got more empathetic. And I feel like those are the two most like powerful traits that women naturally have. And so I think that's why we are very good in our industry, even though we are still the minority. But it's just a point that I wanted to bring up, that these traits that tend to be more feminine, and maybe like people don't see it as maybe attractive in the workforce because they want logic, they want decision goal oriented, but these very hard like skills, not as much of the soft skills, but I think the soft skills is what makes a very, I would say, successful and impactful advisor. And I would say in general, like a boss, like I would say some of my best bosses are the ones that are thoughtful and they like listen and they know what I need. And I feel like that's what we all do for our clients. So
yeah. Thank you. So good. And it's such a good point, because when we think of finances, when we think of sciences, we think of the numbers and the data and it's this or it's this. And that's true. But also, if we're going to help other people understand that and invite them into it, and you want a trusting relationship, you've got to have the empathy and the listening and the relational piece. So, I mean, we've all, or most of us, maybe we haven't all, but we've all either had or heard of that doctor who had all the logic in the world, but had the bedside manner of a rock. Not the kind of person you're going to feel inclined to ask questions or feel safe with, because it feels intimidating. It feels like you don't know if you're safe there, if you're going to be listened to or not. I mean, it's the same thing goes with the finances piece. I mean, it's a both and Maria makes a great point. I think that there's some skills that are undervalued, and that's why it's so important that we work together. And I think can learn that from each other. Tina and I had a conversation when I had her on the podcast, where she has she has a very young office, and younger than everybody here on this call, and which is great. And also I asked her, and a lot of them are guys. I'm like, what are the kinds of things? I mean, you're dealing with people that are much older, and many times, how do they feel about talking to the 27-year-old who and trusting them? And so I know you've done a lot of talking and training with your people about those very pieces of being a good listener, and not only showing that you have the chops financially, but you are someone that can connect with them.
Yeah, we like I said, we work in teams with clients, and all the other advisors in the office are males. So like you said, they're younger. So I'm usually sort of taking the lead in the meeting, and then they're kind of taking notes, and then we split the agenda. So they're maybe talking about some topics, I'm talking about some topics, that sort of thing. But one of the things that we've tried to do to not only help younger advisors sort of build up those chops, but also to help build strong relationships with clients is we take notes and we listen to, what's their pet's name? What do they like to do? Where are they going on vacation? How do they enjoy their free time? Are they celebrating a wedding anniversary? Just some of the life moments, because those are the things that matter to our clients. Is how do they get to spend this money, as opposed to building the biggest pile of cash by the end of their lifetime. So we like to talk to them about those things. And I feel like helping kind of bridge some of that generational gap there between some of my baby boomer clients versus some of my Gen Z, employees here. It really helps them show their level of empathy that they have for our clients. They're really in it with them. They really want to genuinely get to know folks and help them. And so yeah, I think it's a lot of the little things that we try to do with our clients as a team, to work with folks and not only make sure we're listening to them and making sure that they're feeling heard, but also building that personal connection and relationship with them.
Yeah. Good stuff. Do you have any questions for any of the other panelists?
I don't. I was just going to say, this is a fantastic, hopefully this has shown the audience that this is such a great profession for females to get into. And the three other ladies on this panel are total proof of that. And there's so many different career paths that you can take in this industry. And I think that's important to know. There's a lot of great resources, like on the CFP board website, about career paths. And you don't have to be a traditional rainmaker where you're bringing in a whole bunch of business and that sort of thing. If you just want to work with folks and be there for clients and be more of a service advisor, where you're just meeting with clients and you're building plans and you're building investment portfolios, there's a lot of different career paths that folks can take in this industry. And I think as long as you come in with what Maria said in terms of empathy and listening skills and approach it as a relationship as opposed to transactional, a successful career can be built in this field.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So good.
Just to piggyback on that. Sorry.
Go ahead.
For women that are interested in this field or they're starting out in this field, there are organizations that help other women, professional organizations. I'm the vice president of Women in Insurance and Financial Services, WIFS. It's a national organization. They have local chapters. You can go online. They have Zooms once a month. We have meetings in Los Angeles once a month. It's a great way. It's not your typical networking group, because we're all in the financial field in various parts of it, that we're there to mentor as well. So if you're considering it, it's a great opportunity to reach out to your local chapter or, talk to somebody within the organization and just pick their brain. They're part of it. They want more women. That's our goal, is to get more women in this industry. So definitely, I mean, if I'd make a pitch, I'd say, reach out to other professionals, and that's a great place to start too.
Okay. And we'll put that link in our website, and we'll put the CFP one in there too. That's just good information for our listeners to have. We're also going to have all of your links on our show notes, and it's so people can access and figure out how to find you. We could talk all day about this. It's such a multi-leveled, and we had such a, what I also liked about this too is we've got multi-generations here. We've got 30s, 40s, 50s. We've got many of us that are in this at different stages and different levels and are engaged in different ways. And we've addressed, I think, that money is more than money. Money is about relationships. Money is about trust. Money has impact on our emotions. It impacts relationships. Amanda brought up so many important points about how this shows up in relationships and what to look out for and how we get our power back, and starting conversations. Go ahead.
I was going to say one thing, and that is really, it's about awareness, and it's about acknowledging it, accepting it, right? So noticing when something's not right, registering the discomfort, and instead of dismissing it, do something about that. And at first, it's not, you don't need confidence to take action. You need clarity, because what happens is a clarity. You need to start understanding one document. You need to ask one question, clarify one decision. So with that starts to build that self-trust.
And that's such a good point.
That's the way, to start moving forward. And then look at this. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know what the next steps are, because look what we've got here. We've got support. Tina, Maria, Angela, Melissa, we're all here to help and support you. And there are professional people like you were here today to help us get through this. So you don't have to walk the road alone. If you are emotionally and financially abused, there is help out there. And there is clarity, there is confidence, and there is joy.
Thank you so much for that. That was so good. That was such
that
was so good.
It's wonderful. When you recognize it, it just cracks open the door to freedom. And it's financial freedom as well. But it's about really getting into your emotions and being safe in your emotions. And values. Don't let other people define your values.
Move
forward.
You get to do that.
Yeah.
And absolutely.
And the world's your oyster. It is.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. All right. Angela, do you have one last thought? That was a great one from that you'd like to share with our listeners.
Take the blinders off. We're all afraid. If I don't look at it, it doesn't exist. And then I don't, and people are afraid to just look at their situation and understand it and take that next step. They think if they go like this, it'll all go away and we can magically have everything we want. It doesn't work that way. So take the blinders off, meet with somebody, talk with somebody, and make that next step.
So good. Maria, how about you? One last thought.
Yeah, it's similar to Angela. It's like you can have all the financial education in the world and do nothing with it. So it's not about having more education. It's about doing something about it, because once you take the action, that's when you change your finances. You take no action, you had education, you did not improve your finances at all.
Yeah, that's such a good one. Tina, how about you?
I'll just build off of what Amanda had alluded to in terms of just one thing at a time, right? Ask one important question, find out, one important piece of your financial picture. What's the mortgage payment? That's all you got to find out today. Tomorrow, go find out something else. A week after that, go find out something else. And before you know it, you'll have you'll be that much better off than you were, 30 days ago or something like that. So it's all about incremental steps to get to a better place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, all of you. I'm so excited to do this. When I saw all of you RSVP, I'm like, oh, this is going to be so good and so important, because it's, again, that multi-pronged approach. And I think we've hit on so many of the layers that are involved in our finances today. So thank you all for joining me. Listeners, information's in the show notes if you want to know more about any of these fabulous women. I'm also going to have a couple of the links up to the organizations that they're referred to. Hopefully this gave you some things to think about, some actionable thoughts, and some, realizing that you're valuable, you're worthy, and you get to choose. Now, that's where I'm going to leave you with today. Thank you to Amanda, Angela, Maria, Tina.
Thank
you. Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you all as well.
Yeah.
And hello to all the listeners.
All right. Appreciate you all. Take good care. Have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you next week here on the Together We F.E.E.L panel show. Have a good night.
Good night.
Lovely.